Many trends have come and gone in the Geometry Dash landscape over the years, and while some took forever to die out, others last to this day. But which trends are the good ones, which ones are bad, and which trends aren't even worth mentioning? In this video I'll try to answer these questions, as it's a list of all the main Geometry Dash trends from worst to best. Also, quick disclaimer, I only included trends that have originated at least 1-star rated level, so don't expect me to mention something like the silent trend in this list, it ain't gonna happen. Secondly, I see a trend as bad if it doesn't allow for much originality and expression, and a trend that allows for more unique and diverse designs is what I would call a good trend. So with that out of the way, let's get right into the trends. The Flappy Bird trend is quite possibly the worst trend in the whole history of Geometry Dash, as all Flappy Bird levels look the same, play the same, and are as repetitive as Geometry Dash levels can get. And what really boggles my mind is the fact that RobTop used to give those Flappy Bird levels star ratings, and for that reason, the trend used to flood the featured section back in the days of 1.9. Also, the first Flappy levels were released 6 years ago, and the latest ones I could find got released 4 years ago, and you know what that means, right? It means that we had to tolerate this despicable trend for at least 2 years. Fortunately, it died out with the release of 2.0, but all those years of suffering could have been avoided if this specific dude never released this innocent Flappy Bird level. Damn it, Darnock. The mix trend is just lazy, as all the visuals and gameplay in any given mix level are straight up copied from other people's levels. This trend leaves no room for originality, and is based on stealing from other people's designs, which is not something that I personally admire. Mix levels are at heart inconsistent and messy, because they're made of various glued parts that don't fit together at all, like a Frankenstein level of sorts. However, at least it takes some skill to connect each part with decent transitions, and if you're currently making one of those levels, which you're probably not because this is a dead trend, do not mess up your transitions, because that might get you some slightly negative feedback. The paper level trend was pretty popular in the old days of 2.0, and even some relatively known creators and hackers made their own paper levels back in the day. The paper trend consisted of stealing the gameplay of a RobTop level and just making it look like a charming sketch on a piece of paper, aka making RobTop levels look as bad as humanly possible. This style was so rigid that all levels looked exactly the same. I mean, I dare you to tell me which levels are which by looking at these still pictures. You can't see the difference, can you? Neither can I, because trying to name those levels apart from each other by simply looking at them is like trying to spot a difference between the Doom and Animal Crossing fanbases, which is obviously impossible because there are none. But as with everything in life, the best paper levels, where the creator pays close attention to small details, such as making the square rotate when you jump and adding a bit of block design, got little recognition for their work, while mediocre pieces of garbage, such as this one, got all the praise and attention in the world. Where have I seen this kind of pattern before? Sunset levels were also pretty common in 2.0, but most players don't even remember them, so let me briefly explain the trend to you. A sunset level has some basic characteristics, such as the constant usage of black platforms and decorations combined with bright backgrounds, like an actual sunset. Kinda. The trend had 2 main periods of existence before finally dying in the end of 2.0, and those periods were levels with horrible gameplay that looked like anything but a sunset, and levels that looked somewhat like a sunset, but also with horrible gameplay. Such horrendous gameplay was caused by different things in each period though. For instance, older sunset levels used to have bad gameplay due to weird transitions, while the cancerous gameplay in newer sunset levels was usually caused by confusing designs. And by that I mean that there's nothing to differentiate solid platforms from things that are merely decorative, so you have to keep guessing while you play. Can I step on that platform? Can I go through that hot air balloon? Or will I crash if I try to? Is this pointy thing safe to pass by, or should I simply jump over it? Is this helicopter just decorative, or will its blades actually cut my GD icons in half? Now it would give you some time to predict the outcome for each one of those scenarios, but you most likely wouldn't get most of them right because the outcomes are completely unpredictable and the rules vary from level to level. This kind of arbitrary design is what makes these levels' gameplay so unbearable, and that's without mentioning the outstanding art that can be found in those levels, like this perfect depiction of a blue square. Now seriously, that was actually supposed to be a moon somehow. The 9 circles trend is perhaps the most well-known Geometry Dash trend ever, so I won't waste any of your time explaining this style and what makes it unique. However, I will say that 9 circles levels have a pretty rigid structure to be followed. I mean, every circles level must have a wave section in the drop, cube, ball or ship sections before and after such drop, and of course, the iconic flashing visuals in the wave parts. See, the problem with having very rigid checklists like that is that all Circles levels will have very similar visuals, so much so that the only thing that varies between each one of them is color, and some levels even use the same color palette, almost rendering them visually indistinguishable. But at least the most recent levels in this trend have tried to be a little more unique, by changing the flash effects the trend is known for and experimenting with new concepts. While this trend has lost a bit of its popularity over time, it's pretty impressive that it is still around, even though the first Circles level that started it all was released 5 years ago. The If Blank was level 1 trend, which I'll be referring to as the level 1 trend, wasn't nearly as popular as 9 Circles levels, and this is what this trend was all about. Level 1 levels could be made in 2 distinct ways. The first and most known one is by copying all the decorations of a popular level and just making it easier, so less skilled players can have a taste of it. The second approach to making a level 1 level is to copy the Stereo Madness style and just choose a song that was also used in a famous level. Needless to say, this trend was pretty low effort and bland, as no level 1 level ever brought new iconic styles to the table, relying only on the fame of bigger levels for easy downloads. But hey, at least level 1 creators had to come up with original gameplay for their levels, unlike some other creators out there. Remake levels, on the other hand, don't outright copy the style of famous levels, but change it in some unique way. And just to be clear, by remake levels I mean V2 and Rebirth ones, as both trends are about remaking an existing level while getting inspired by its visuals. The remake style allows for quite a bit of expressiveness, but just a handful of remake levels turn out to be truly remarkable. However, some remake levels look so much like the level that inspired them that they have no interesting aspects whatsoever, leaving us with uninspired levels that almost feel like a copy. But still, this trend has led to some great designs over the years, and I'd say that the awesome remakes outweigh the bad apples in the trend by a long shot. The glow style is oftentimes called generic by some, but I wouldn't call it that, since the term generic can mean different things depending on who you ask. For instance, each Geometry Dash version had their own generic levels, so those levels don't really make a trend or style per se, as they're always evolving, making the term generic pretty vague, but I digress. So, the main aspect of glow levels is, you guessed it, the usage of glow decorations. While the glow style doesn't require much creativity or imagination to work, glow levels do take some effort to make, mainly in the block designs, which are, at times, pretty intricate. However, most players still despise the glow style due to how overused it is, but it has come a long way, and the evolution of the style becomes apparent when you compare glow levels from nowadays to those from 4 years ago. What a difference, am I right? They barely look alike. The usage of red is the most notable trait of Hell levels, as even node Hell levels such as Red World already used to use red as the main color. But monochromatic levels do get old pretty fast, and that's why everybody is tired of seeing the same Hell style over and over again in Extreme Demons. However, the Hell theme does leave some room for uniqueness, despite its mandatory color palette. Look, can you tell me which one of those levels are which by simply looking at these pictures? I bet you can, and that proves the Hell levels can stand out with unique arts and memorable designs, even though they have to use similar colors. The classic auto trend was at its peak in the earlier days of Geometry Dash, and this is how the trend began. A player called Jax had the brilliant idea of making a level that plays itself automatically by using pads and portals, and on doing so, he gave birth to the auto difficulty, and to the classic auto trend. I'd say the only problem with such trend are the bugs that can be found in auto levels, as some of them are just beatable in 60Hz devices, which goes to show how ancient those levels can be. But don't get me wrong, this type of auto level is still being made to this day. I mean, the latest classic auto that got rated was pretty recent, am I right? Oh, never mind. I initially planned on putting effect layouts higher on this list, but upon closer observation, I realized that the style is pretty limited, mainly in its visuals, as every effect layout has used the same 1.0 blocks everywhere, and creators have to rely solely on effects and interesting movements to make their creations stand out. Also, there's a big problem with effect layouts, and it starts when creators begin to make the layouts just to get rewarded with attention and exposure, as YouTubers like Mopen have the habit of showcasing those layouts on their channels, and this could cause an oversaturation of effect layouts, likely making them the new generic. But this issue is too complex for a single section in this video, so I can't tackle it as meticulously as I'd like to. So I'd recommend watching Ender's video on the topic after you're done watching this one, if you want a more in-depth analysis on this specific subject. The modernistic trend is somewhat divisive in the community. Some love it, others hate it, and I have my own share of things that I dislike about it. The main one being the implementation of custom portals, which can lead to very confusing level design. Look, custom portals can be done right, and that's when they resemble the regular portals in such a way that you can sight read them as easily as if they were normal ones. My problem is when creators design their custom portals in an unclear manner, one that is too abstract to be quickly understood by the players. I mean, is this a magnifying portal or a cube one? Is this a shrink portal or a ship one? Is this a square or a cube? Yeah, that's actually a square, but the other questions aren't as easy to answer, am I right? Now imagine having to figure out what portal does what while going through a level. Doesn't seem very enjoyable, does it? Some levels do have keys to turn off the custom portals and such, but those are not as common as I wish they were. Plus, having to grab a stupid key every time you die is a little irritating. But don't get me wrong, modernistic levels can be great when done right, as the style allows for quite a bit of originality and expression, and I just have so much stuff to talk about it that it wouldn't fit in this small section alone. So maybe I'll make a video solely on the modernistic trend in the future, who knows? The main thing about travel levels is that they're pretty damn long, as you may already know, and they can be divided in two groups. Those that respect the object limit and those that don't and trespass it by using hacks. Both groups have analogous issues, those being either having too little or too much decoration. I mean, let's take a look at Lonely Travel by Funny Game, a level that respects the object limit. As you can see, it oftentimes feels empty due to how lengthy it is, and that's because Funny Game had to simplify the visuals as a whole to keep it all under the 80k objects barrier. On the other hand, we have Dream Travel, a level that goes far beyond the 80,000 objects mark. And the issue here is that levels like Dream Travel are not playable in most mobile devices without the usage of low detail modes. And if played with the LDM on, it just looks too empty and hollow. But don't let those little issues distract you from the fact that this trend has originated countless mind-blowing levels over the years, with astounding amounts of creativity being displayed in each one of them. I bet everyone knows what film levels are all about. You just sit back and relax while you watch a little movie made in Geometry Dash. This type of level allows creators to make pretty much anything they want, if they're willing to put time and effort into it. The only real problem with this trend is the oversaturation of cube story levels, but I would say that film levels have moved past the cube story era. Nowadays, most movie levels are not at all related to cube story cliches, as each one of them follows their own creative paths. Film levels being laggy on mobile devices could also be considered a problem, but as we're talking about movie levels, lag isn't a big deal, since there are no obstacles in them. But I won't deny the fact that laggy performance takes away from the experience of playing a film level. I'm just saying that it's not as bad as levels with actual gameplay that lag, cause then the lag can actually cost you an attempt. Deadlocked was the first level to ever have a boss fight, but I wouldn't call it a boss fight level, due to how short the boss fight section is. For that reason, I only consider a stage to be a boss fight one if it has bosses for at least half of its duration. And the main problem with this trend is that most boss fight levels are not sight readable, which means you have to do at least one practice run to fully memorize the boss movements before you can take him down. I will say though that some boss fights do have clear telegraphs for each boss attack, but those are more the exception than the rule. What I like about this trend is how it allows creators to do pretty much whatever they want with it. From a boss fully made of ladders to gigantic mechanical monsters, anything is possible. The sky's the limit. Just have some mercy for mobile players, okay? And the best trend of all times in my worthless opinion is... The game trend is by far the one that requires the most effort and imagination from its creators. And just to make it clear, when I say game trend, I'm referring to both game recreations as well as many game levels such as the Alter games. You might argue that some of those stages are gimmicky and have awkward mechanics, but they're undeniably the most original levels in the whole game. This is the style that really pushes the boundaries of what's achievable with the level editor. Just look around. Master Game has a goddamn save system. Tic-Tac-Toe has a working artificial intelligence. Sputnik's Dam is literally a 3D level within Geometry Dash. Serpongia's Alter Game 14 has randomly generated obstacles, even though we still don't have the random trigger. Brilliance is everywhere to be found when it comes to game levels. However, the trend has one tiny issue, and that's the fact that you have to have the Always Limit Controls option enabled for most of them to work properly. And the option takes a while to find in the Geometry Dash UI, so you have to navigate all the way back to the title screen to get to this menu and turn the option on. But that's not the level creator's fault, as this is an issue within the Geometry Dash UI itself. Moreover, this trend is only the best one when it comes to creative freedom and uniqueness, those being the traits that I find the most valuable in any given trend. But your view on what makes a trend good or bad might be different than mine, And if you use different criteria to judge each trend, the whole list changes. And this means that this is not an objective, definitive list. It is all just my opinion after all. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!